See, I went out to visit my daughter just got here. No, you're on the roof. Yeah, which we always do tell. We didn't. I don't think. I don't think it matters. It used to. My daughter. That's not an issue. Well, we had a class with sister. I met her. Also new to me. That's the modern wedding now, but that's.
Yeah. Okay, we have everyone here. So I'll call the meeting to order. It's now 1:35. We'll start with roll call. Okay. I'm going to motion to return from recess. Thank you, Joe.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thunder. Okay, so thank you for everyone's patience as we had to recess, and now that thank you for coming back and coming together with us today. So number 2, in regards to the transfer of Shine, Grant Billingsley was not able to be present for today, so I would make the recommendation just to continue that conversation regarding policies and procedures next Tuesday.
That's fine. Just you all may have discussed this while I was gone, so I apologize. There was the issue with the lease and some of the repairs. Any progress made there?
So from what I understand is that the last update that I had heard from Grant was that they were going to get it done by the end of the week, but I hadn't heard anything.
That was my understanding.
So he did not give us an update.
The owner of the building was? Okay.
Yeah, they were going to try to get those repairs completed, but I don't believe that he provided an update on Tuesday.
I don't know that he addressed it on Tuesday, but that is my understanding as well.
And that action then meets with the terms of the lease as I read it, so that's good. Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah. So we'll move on to number 4, since we have the presiding judge and vice presiding judge and Renee here. This item number 4 is discussion and possible action regarding providing ARPA funds for the courthouse door locks and access control in the amount not to exceed $1,160,936.77. We've gathered a lot of information in regards to this opportunity for ARPA project, but I would love for Jamie and Danielle to give us an update in regards to its eligibility, and then we can kind of go from there.
Thank you. And I'm going to just open up with a reminder of how we do eligibility analysis and what we do. The first step is what we do is we go back and we look at all the categories that they lay out. And so we look at, is there a category where this project fits? And then we pull all the different categories and we look at both, there's something called the enumerated uses, where it says within this category, here's how you could use this. And it very clearly calls out. Or you can make your case if it's not within an enumerated use within that category. So we do that analysis. We say, one, which category does it fit in? Is it called out as enumerated use, or is there any other way to call it out? And what we're trying to really make the evaluation is, does the description fit within the category that we're trying to apply? And is there any other categories where it could apply? And so we've done a lot of evaluation here, and Danny's going to walk through a couple of categories we considered to see if it makes a good fit.
Oh, can you hear me? All right, great. So 3 of the eligibility categories that we evaluated included contact tracing, prevention in a congregate setting, and technology improvements. Our takeaways for each of those are a little bit different, starting with the contact tracing. The original narrative of these projects related to security cameras were approved under contact tracing capabilities. And though there are some contact tracing capabilities built into the badge readers, because you're able to scan the badge and then use the camera piece to identify where employees were at and if they came in contact with other individuals, because it is not necessarily 100% dependent on the camera piece, but because it does rely to some extent on that for an extensive ability to contact trace, it just doesn't fit very well within that category. The capabilities of the system still work as strongly on their own versus with the use of the security cameras. So as a project by itself, it does not seem to be eligible. It would really only be able to track the employee level, whereas the security cameras are able to track actively the thousands of people that walk into the building every day. The Treasury Department does have some guidance around projects that may be used partially, and they say that SLR federal funds should not be used to fund a project in its entirety if only a portion of that project is entirely or portionally eligible. And so using that guidance and that language, we're just not confident in recommending this for funding at this time. Additionally, the Treasury Department has issued guidance that says that you want to ensure that your projects are not grossly disproportionate to the type of extent or harm that was impacted by COVID-19. And so part of that goes into the prevention of congregate setting eligibility category that we considered. We understand that there are changing and adapting needs to meet the pandemic, but because both the state and federal public health emergency have been rescinded at this time, moving forward with a security / contact tracing project doesn't seem to be a good fit at this time or a proportional response to the harm addressed by COVID. And then lastly, the third eligibility category we reviewed was related to technology improvements. And you would think that this would be something that might fit under that, but really the technology improvements are intended to help address government backlogs and updating government systems that would help benefit the public. So, anything that would be externally facing or would allow members of the community staff to work from home, but not reduce services to their constituency. So this is really to adapt government operations to the pandemic and reduce government backlogs. And again, this doesn't fit quite as nicely as we would want it to. So our overall recommendation would be that this is a likely ineligible project for funding. So the way that Treasury phrases it is that responses must be related and reasonably proportional to the extent and type of public health impact or harm that was experienced. If a use bears no relation or is grossly disproportionate to the type of extent or harm experienced, it would not be considered an eligible use. So this would be something, for instance, building an entirely new facility to support social distancing. That is an example that they have called out and used as something that would not be considered a eligible use and would be considered a very disproportional impact to the needs arised during the pandemic.
So I'm not great at this, so help me out. To better understand that disproportional aspect, this project's approximately $1.1 million and will service a few hundred people, whereas the CameraCom project was approximately the same, I think, and it's thousands, as you said. So is that part of the analysis there as a per cost basis?
That's correct. That is correct. And because this project, if it was funded on its own, is over $1 million, or if the courthouse were to fund it at the $700,000 mark that they have discussed, and the county took the $300,000 and included that to the sheriff portion of the project, that would increase that project to be over $1 million at that point, and we would have the same concern then.
Okay, that helps me understand that rationale then. Thank you.
Okay, so she's saying because the total project is over $1 million, that it still fits into that criteria. Would you like to say something? Yeah. Thank you, Vice.
So my question is, did you take into consideration the aspects of the fact that we have thousands of people that enter, public members that enter the courtrooms and the offices of the courts during the day? So it's not just the employees.
Yes, when it comes to, excuse me, frog in my throat. When it comes to the camera portion of the project, that is a strong case, whereas the badge readers are not used by the public.
So a part of this, Captain Basin, you may want to enlighten me on this if I'm wrong, but we have these badge readers also on, and cameras that are on the courtroom doors, is that correct? What is on the courtroom door? Okay. Okay. So at one time I thought we were talking about putting these on the courtroom doors as well.
Captain Basin, would you like to
Okay.
join us?
So then, and what I'm hearing is this is simply kind of a balancing act in terms of whether or not the cost of this and the benefit to the public and the employees would work.
And our question is this used for contact tracing? Are you installing these badge readers and door locks to conduct contact tracing capabilities?
What information do you need from us?
On our end, I think we've received information. We've received it from the sheriff's office and from Mr. Reason, and the white papers that we received from them just isn't enough for us to make a recommendation of eligibility that is positive.
So, well, I mean, it sounds like that you all have come to a firm decision, and certainly we want to respect that in terms of the recommendations that and how you would utilize the ARPA funds. I'm just wanting to make sure, though, that you have all the information, meaning that, there's a number of, I will tell you, there's a number of aspects that came to our presence during the pandemic. Much of that was, in fact, we had no ability to know whether or not people, that were positive, if they came into or out of our office. We had policies that you were not then allowed to come into the offices if, in fact, you were positive. So we did a lot of things that, by virtue of signage, that this same thing would do with regard to the cameras and the badge readers. So I'm not for sure if there's a full comprehension of just how much the public accesses our offices. And I don't know if that's a clear understanding, meaning that, for example, I'm just going to utilize my last week. I would say I probably had over 150 people, perhaps 200 people, in and out of my outer office. That would be members of the public. I'm a civil district judge. The way that matters get set would be that attorneys come in and or their representatives to put things on my docket. I had over 50 things on my docket this morning. Yesterday afternoon, I had over 50 things. I had a trial earlier this week and last week. My numbers are smaller than the criminal district judges. So I'm not for sure. I mean, and then we have small claims. So I'm not for sure if there's a good mental image of what really goes on over there in that building in terms of the public and the
Sure.
volume of people.
So I can speak to that concern a little bit. That is something that would go into the capital justification, the written justification that would be necessary for a project of this size. And part of that goes directly back to whether this is a proportional response to the pandemic. In writing a written justification, you have to compare alternative options, and you have to compare at least two alternatives. So to the point that you've made, the courthouse and the county in general had COVID-related policies during the pandemic. And so that's something that we would make a comparison against, is those policies versus this system. And while we understand that the system will help after the fact if somebody has caught COVID, and then you can identify and let other people know, from a mitigation perspective, it's likely that the internal policies that were in place at that time, such as masking and social distancing, would be more impactful than the card reader system.
Can I interrupt for just a minute and ask? Nikki just walked in. Nikki, can I ask you a question? Put you on the spot for a moment. Hi. I've talked to you a couple of times about looking at possible alternative funding sources to address some of the issues in the courthouse. Aesthetically, and then I think with maybe even this project that we're talking about, card reader access generally for security. Have you had an opportunity to look? Is there something that is available that you've seen yet, might be available? Because I think what we're hearing today is, as it stands now, that the use of ARPA funds is likely ineligible. So to move this along, any progress or?
There were a couple of Department of Justice grants that I kind of looked at briefly that could potentially work. I don't know about a security and lock system, but infrastructure upgrades definitely.
Okay.
I can delve more and get specifics, maybe reach out to a program manager and ask for guidance if is it surveillance cameras and locks?
I think the camera aspect has been clearly identified as ARPA eligible because of the ability to do contact tracing. Here, I think the question is the proportionality of the expense, what the project itself entails. I'm just, in order to move this along, I'd be interested in you pursuing that further and perhaps getting with Judge Ogden, Judge Andrews, Renee, Captain Baisden, and seeing if we might pursue that as an alternative as well.
Sure, I'd love to.
Yeah,
Your
that's
thoughts?
a great idea. I think that's an awesome idea.
Thank you.
Give me a
Yeah.
couple of weeks to
Yeah.
delve into what's available currently, and I'll report back to this body in 2 weeks' time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. Vice Presiding Judge Ogden, do you have any other thoughts or anything else to say?
Well, I think that we've made our case the best we can. While I respect Accenture, I don't agree with them, and I don't agree with the proportionality aspect of it. But it is, and because I don't know their full understanding of just how many thousands of people enter the courthouse every single day, and how the public would be served. And I think it's more of a misunderstanding of the utility, which is then now impacting proportionality struggles and mentions that present. But I'm not Accenture.
Right.
So that's just my point of view, but we have to respect the process.
Well, we appreciate your time. It looks like Andrea and Captain Basin may have some additional information to share.
Just for clarity's sake, and because our project sort of tangentially touches this project, I just wanted to make sure everybody sort of understood how this system works. I think everybody understands the camera part of the process, but all of this comes together as a single system, and the badge readers can be viewed independently. The movement of employees through the building can be viewed independently of the cameras, and vice versa. But relying on one or the other exclusively, I think is where it sounds like there may be some misunderstanding on the part of Accenture. These badge readers are an integral part of the contact tracing. If you as an employee touch a door, I can go in, I can see every door that you touched if something happens and you're a sick individual, and then I can see everyone that touched that same door within 48 hours afterwards, so that I know what other employees touched it. I know what public spaces that you've been in. So then I can go to a camera system and see if there's, the quantify the potential public exposure for that employee's travel through those spaces. And one of the other things, I mean, we hear the proportional language as a response to this current pandemic, but one thing I think we also need to remember is that the final rule language also talks prospectively about the future. And one of the things that I think every area in this country and across the world struggled with at the beginning of this pandemic was contact tracing, and having this in place prior to the next no-see-um that's going to happen, I think is something that fits within our understanding of the final rule. So I just wanted to make sure, since our project was brought up, that both of the pieces of this technology are part of the contact tracing project, not one or the other exclusive.
Thank you. That was very eloquently said.
That
And also, if you all would like a live demo as how all of this fits together, we're prepared to go ahead and
No,
provide that demonstration.
I don't. The live demo won't do me any good. What I heard from Accenture, again, they were hired to advise the board, is that this is based upon the information that's been provided. This is likely ineligible. Additionally, due to the cost, it will require some substantial written justifications. What it sounds like to me is the camera project and this are intricately linked. Therefore, it would require modification in my mind, much like when we were talking about doing the fourth floor or doing something differently, essentially reviewing the entirety of the process for justification. Right, because I think that if I didn't think the project was important, I wouldn't have asked Nikki to try to find some additional funding. But what I do know is that the county had to pass the hat to the tune of $2 million to find funds for benefits this year. And that if any project is found to be an ineligible use, we have to pass the hat to come up with however many $1 million of that is within 120 days. That's the rule. So being cautious, I think, is prudent.
Well, and one of the reasons we wanted to come up here was to let you know that we feel like we do have the justification, whether the project were to exceed $1 million or not. We feel like we do have the documentation, both from our internal projects as well as the
Right,
manufacturers.
Andre, but you having the documentation in a sense or not for part of the project file, that's the issue, right? If it's
I don't know that they don't have the documentation that we provided to them, so much so that there may be a misunderstanding of how this project works. And if we need to sit down with them and really dig into that.
Can I speak to that, Joe? We have received the documentation that Andrea is mentioning, and we have heard the opinion that is being shared on the mic just previously, and it doesn't sway or change our take on this project. We do have an understanding of how it works, and we appreciate everyone sharing the additional information with us and walking us through that. But our recommendation remains the same. And at this point, it becomes a county policy decision. Our opinion is not going to change.
Thank you.
We're just thinking about, would this case hold up when Treasury comes to say, is this full project contact tracing? And we believe it feels fully eligible. And we are just not confident that that's how Treasury would interpret that this is for contact tracing. And that's why we're exercising caution.
Keith Monroe?
Yes, I'm sorry to butt in here, but I'm thinking about a scenario where a facility employee who has COVID comes into the building, is featured on camera, but then has access to areas within the complex that aren't covered by camera coverage and can be identified and traced by the badge as to where he goes throughout the building, even though he's not on camera. Is that how this system is designed to work?
But I'm completely confused, because my understanding on the selling point of the camera was that we would catch someone who was coming into the building as they were coming in and be able to identify that they had a fever and be able to turn them away.
I see.
Now that's not necessarily true given there's an exposure period, but
I just am now hearing how these things work together and imagining a scenario with my own department where people will come in and aren't necessarily seen on camera. They don't necessarily have to come through the front entrance. I don't know if that helps, hurts, or whatever, but a possible scenario.
Thank you, Keith.
Is that accurate? The camera, the comprehensive nature of the camera eye, if you will be broader or narrower? My understanding of the cameras is that's going to give us some comprehensive information.
And searchability.
Right, that's broader than the card readers, and will catch those persons on camera regardless of whether or not they've utilized the card reader. But I don't know the details, and you all are presenting it maybe as if I'm just curious. Is that inaccurate?
So the cameras, the way they're positioned, something like that would be let's say at a hallway level, and the hallway level, it's going to show the person walking towards the door, but it may not show them going into the door, where this will actually be on the door face, and it's a camera, and it's actually gonna capture the person going to the door and going through the door. So that's the only advantage to having this, as well as, and it'll be totally integrated into the Avigilon system. It'll have its own server that's linked to the Avigilon cameras. So that it will be utilized as well. Does that help? I mean, does that explain
It's an
what you're?
additional, are you saying it's an additional camera?
Yeah.
Okay. And they'll be able to see the person. Interesting, thank you. That makes sense, thank you.
David, can I see that real quick? Show me again.
And this document's been seen by Accenture.
There's only 5 of us. There's only 5 in the proposal. The IBX DVM William Video Door Station, 5.
There should be, this is broke down by floors.
Is it floors? Okay, 5. All right, okay.
And
9.
yeah,
Okay, all right, I'm tracking now.
But I was gonna follow up on Jessica's question, confirming Accenture already have these documents.
Accenture, I think Accenture's, I mean, I strongly believe it's something that we need, but it's Accenture's ultimately. Would you mind saying that on the mic? Thank you. The question was, I just want to make sure Accenture has all the information that's being provided today.
If we are discussing the details within the contract, such as the line items, I'm not sure what he handed out. We have seen that, and I did do an internal review per line item to make a determination of much of the $1 million we thought would be even remotely eligible, and it was under $150,000.
So I heard that right. So what portion of the project did you say? Is there a portion of it that would be eligible? And what's the amount?
It was less than $150,000. I have to pull up where I highlighted it at. But again, this is us making, that's not going to be a firm number today. We're going to have to, if that's something the county decides to pursue, then we have to work with the vendor to actually go line item by line item. This is just us looking at it on our end at the current time.
So Danielle, it's conceivable then that you could take another look at this and have the proportional cost that you're looking at, you estimated 150,000. The 26 or so cameras that are specifically outlined in the proposal may, in fact, since they would integrate and provide that tracing function, be eligible. But the card readers themselves, the larger number of card readers themselves, that analysis may remain the same. It sounds like.
Right. So we could look at it again. I can't say confidently that there's going to be a change in the recommendation. We can look at the camera systems with the sheriff's department and with the vendor directly. And like I said, the number I came up with originally was under $150,000. I believe that for this project to work, it would probably still need to go and be bundled with the sheriff's department's project, and that is another thing we would have to reevaluate and reconsider due to the increased costs.
Right, right. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, so if I need to go back to the vendor and have them specifically drop a quote for component, that sort of deal, and exclude like locks, and I'll be more than happy to do that.
Thank you.
One other thing that might seem premature, but is in the body of the contract, the contractor in this case excludes any work, electrical work, 120 volt feeds to the equipment, and also excludes any patch or repair work necessary to repair a plaster and lath surface like we have in the courthouse. So any drilling, any modifications, any wire pulls like that have the potential to add to the cost of this project, but certainly need to be considered. That's a difficult place to work without causing damage.
And those repairs are not likely going to be considered eligible.
Any other thoughts? I know on behalf of District 2, we'd really like to see this project come to fruition in some way. And so thank you, Joe, for making that recommendation for Nikki to look at other alternatives. And then it sounds like there may be opportunity for us to provide additional information to Accenture. Accenture, can you provide any details that may help with justification that they can work on to over the next week? And then I guess just
Like I said, we have received the white paper and the contract, and we have met with the department and heard their feedback on it. Jamie may have more to say, but I can't think of anything at this time that is going to assist that we haven't already seen.
okay. Any other thoughts, Jamie, in regards to the potential?
I don't think so. We can look at the line items and see if there is a smaller amount that may be directly available and get a direct number. Like Danny said, that 150,000. I think we're just taking an approach that to really look at, is this being used for the categories that it's eligible? Is this contact tracing?
Yeah.
And then how much of this will be used for that contact tracing, and is it proportional? And that's how we came up with this eligibility.
Okay, thank you.
I appreciate
Thank you.
that.
Any other thoughts in regards to this? So it sounds like we can
Just to
continue to.
receive the information, and then if there's something additional that comes to light, provide that and look at it. Meanwhile, Nikki's going to be looking for alternative funding sources, and we can hopefully move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll motion to receive report.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you for your time here today, Judge Ogden and presiding Judge Andrews and Renee. So we'll look at number 3, discussion of possible action regarding policies, processes, procedures, and status of report related to planning, oversight, and administration of Oklahoma County's ARPA funding allocation.
Alrighty, so a couple of exciting pieces. We have received from each district their community selections, which will we will be putting on the BOCC agenda for Wednesday of next week. We will be sharing that with each office prior to sharing it with the clerk's office to make sure we've captured everything appropriately.
Let me, Danielle, throw this out real quick. Next week is a pretty busy week. I know Commissioner Davidson will be representing the county at some DOJ-related training for the new jail.
Correct.
And won't be present for that. I don't matter, but I'll be there. I suspect that you would be there as your representative. Okay. Well, someone from your office would be there. So where I'm going with this is perhaps rather than on the 28th, that we look at a special meeting on the 29th for the BOCC meeting on the 29th for this purpose, or just rolling it to our first meeting in July to roll out all of our community projects.
Absolutely, we would have no objection. Thank you for noticing that we all have a very oddly crowded week next week leading up to the beginning of next month, and that would be helpful to us, I think, to be able to.
And that'll
not
give
shuttle
them,
too much.
yeah, and that'll give them more time to add those to the agenda.
And we've only just given some of our information to Accenture, so there's.
Sorry to throw you all that curveball, but that DOJ thing just kind of popped up.
So,
No problem. I was intending to present in person on Wednesday since I was going to be in town for BOCC, but we'll need to be virtual for Thursday or later.
Okay.
so it'd be the
Well,
first.
I don't know if your office would be comfortable in doing a special meeting, whether it would fit with Commissioner Davidson's schedule or our own schedule. I'm not certain. I just think all three commissioners would probably like to be present on that day.
Agreed. I appreciate the suggestion. I'd have to check calendars though too.
Okay. So why don't we tentatively consider then the first regular meeting in July? Kind of, so we're not
Sounds
scrambling
good.
to figure out. Okay.
Yeah. We'll plan for the first meeting of July, BOCC meeting is when we'll announce the award recipients. Or put those on the
Well,
agenda in
50%.
order to be presented to be approved.
So we will not put any on next week. We will put them on the July BOCC agenda.
Correct.
Great. So we're very excited for that. Excited to get those out into the community starting in July. Following those awards, we will work with each of the selected applicants, letting them know their status, whether it is as a subrecipient, grantee, or contractor, letting them know their risk assessment determination, low, medium, or high, and getting them all set up and making sure they understand the compliance. We'll do a compliance training as well. So looking forward to those pieces. As for at a project related scale, the piece that we have been attaching to the agenda, we don't have too many updates on that. As you all know, at BOCC this past week, the premium pay dollars were able to come back into the 1415 account, which was $226,868.46. And then the Griffin Memorial Hospital was approved for $500,000 more dollars by the BOCC, which is wonderful as well. So we are tracking both of those updates on our end. Additionally, we are still monitoring the construction related projects such as the fourth floor, and we'll monitor the infrastructure meeting on Monday that is going to occur, and continue to watch as those projects come together. It's our understanding, excitedly, that some of the interviews for architecting have been going on for the Rouse EOC design. So we're really excited as well to see those things coming together. Next week, you will see on the T&G agenda a small amount that will be coming back to the 1415 account from the Juvenile Bureau related to their telemental health project. This project was originally authorized at $355,500, but with the wonderful contracting negotiations by Hannah, they were able to agree on a contract of $352,977.20. So there will be $2,522.90 coming back to the 1415 account.
That's great.
that kind of walks us through initial highlights. If anybody has specific projects that they want to discuss, we are happy to do so at this time as well.
None for me at this time.
No.
No. Thank you for the update.
Of course.
Anything else for us at this time? Okay.
Not from us.
Okay, well, I'll ask for a motion to receive report.
So moved.
So,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I don't see any citizen participation.
if I might, sorry to interrupt, but
Yes.
As you mentioned on item 2, grants gone this week.
Mhm.
I've been doing a lot of the work on the shine for our office and the policies, procedures, et cetera. I won't be here because I'll be at that DOJ training. So I would just request that we would postpone that yet again.
Okay.
Good idea.
Yeah, we want you to be here.
Thank you. All righty.
So that is postponed to the next meeting, which is it's the 5th, since it's moved. Yeah, because of the holiday.
Thank you.
I'll ask, and while we're talking about Shine, I'll ask for an update in regards to the vineyard. And any other comments?
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
None for me. Okay, I'll motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, guys.